Okay, some participants already had confirmed earlier, some have confirmed right now. All right, so we'll start today's session. And as you know, it is React.js. We'd be going through a project in React.js, and then we'd be implementing other libraries like Redux and Redux Saga and React Router and so on. All right, so we would like to get started with the first session today. It will be just an introduction to React.js and some core languages or some core language concepts or language syntaxes that we need to learn. And I would be providing this video after the session is done. I'd provide you a YouTube link so that you would be able to practice with that video. So as of now, everyone has to look at my screen. All right, and then once you get the video, you'd have to practice once more, and you would be able to simply repeat everything. And if you have any questions or maybe if you face any problems in the next session, you can just let me know. So just giving you a brief introduction about myself. I have been in this industry since around 12 years now. I have delivered certain trainings at Elegant Microweb, been lucky to be there and enjoyed a lot, but now it is remote. So I'm at my home and everyone is also at their own homes. But I'm glad that we are able to conduct this training this way, and I'm glad that everyone has joined in the exact number that we were looking for. As I said, I have been working as a trainer since quite long now. In 2017, I actually quit my job. It was a nice job at one of the companies in Ahmedabad, and I wanted to pursue corporate training. And since then, I have been able to deliver trainings at Wipro, Capgemini, Conduent, Aviva, TCS, and then a lot of smaller ones as well. As of now, I deliver trainings in Node.js, React, Angular, MongoDB, Laravel, and so on. Basically open source platforms. And this one for us is React.js, of course. All right, so I'm just telling you this because as some of you might already know, that our sessions are more of like discussions rather than just lectures. So I would like you to let me know if you are facing any issues, or maybe if you have any points in mind which you can discuss with everyone. You can use the chat, or you can unmute yourselves and discuss with me. That's fine. But React.js, as again, it's a library which we'll be using, which we'll be developing one application in. But more importantly, it is the concept of front-end development that we are interested in. All right, so let's begin. Let's start our day one. And in today's day, we'll be going for the introduction to React.js, and we'd also like to learn some language basics as far as JavaScript is concerned, which are important for us as far as React programming is. So in this particular session, we would like to first learn what React is and get one application running about in two different ways, and we'll be using one of the ways to go for the other application in this particular series of sessions that we have. So today's session is more or less focused on introduction, but from tomorrow we'll be going for a project, and that project will be taking further till the end of the 12th day. So in essence, we'd have a fully working project, but it'll be a very small project. We have a time limitation. So what I would suggest you is, based on what we do, just try and figure out one functionality, one module or something from your existing set of projects, and try and do that in React. That would actually help you a lot. All right, so the things that we are going to cover are React Redux, Redux Saga, Axios, React Router, and then at the end, some introduction to unit testing and server-side rendering in React. All right, and that will be basically one whole application from end to end. So today's topics are pretty simple, pretty introductory. All right, and in this particular, just a second. Okay, in the topics that we have today, we'll be going for, let's say, the agenda, if we talk about, is to create a Hello World React.js app. But this application will be created in two ways, so that you know what is going on underneath in React. One is from the scratch via CDN, and one would be by using create React app utility, or we call it a tool chain. All right, and then we'd go for ES6 features. All right, we'd go for ES6 features. So ES6 features, if we list it out, it would be variables, fat arrow functions, operators. Operators are pretty same. So template literals or template strings, you may say. Then there will be classes. There will be import, export syntax. There will be spread operators, something called destructuring, and these are like pretty much enough for whatever we have as far as React is concerned to learn. But then there are a couple of concepts which are a bit advanced ones, which we are not going to cover today, but we'd cover it in right time. Whenever the topics, related topics come in, we'd cover this topic as well. So the topic that we are going for, promises and generators, or generator functions essentially. We'll see what these are. They'll be useful for us while making API integration possible in React. All right, so these are the ES6 features, and those are the ones that we are going to cover, plus a Hello World React application from CDN and by using Create React App. Usually we'd go for Create React App only, but in order to understand what is going on in Create React App, we would have to do it from the scratch first. All right, so this is the agenda for today, and I would like you to just confirm that everyone is clear with today's agenda. All right, since we are web developers and application programmers, we just use binary to communicate. So 0 for no and 1 for yes. I think that will save us a lot of time and generate a lot of responses. Cool. And everyone just reply publicly. So reply to everyone rather than just replying me privately. All right. Everyone else, please confirm that you're clear with the agenda. Cool. Very good. So now first I would like you to tell me, what do you understand by React.js? I'll also open up the website and copy the link here. The official website, by the way, has a very nice tutorial. Anyone? What do you like? It's obviously this is the definition, but what do you understand about React.js? What React.js essentially is? Anything that you've heard of? Anything that makes you intriguing? Native application development platform. Yes, so Ketan is partly correct. Like React.js per se, it's not used for native application development. React.js is used for web development, but then there is React Native, which is having the core syntax similar to React.js. That would be used for native application development as well. We are going for the web development in this particular case. All right. Anyone else? Any other ideas? I would like to list everything down. So Ketan says native app development, but that is React Native. And we are going for React Web, but once you learn React.js development on the web, it is really simple for you. The learning curve becomes really easy and really short as far as anything else is concerned. So I will just copy this definition as well. This is the official definition. It's more for front-end development. Yep, front-end development library. That's what Ajay says. All right. Anyone else? Yeah, Ajay didn't mention library, but it's just front-end development. Anyone else? Any other opinions? So basically, one thing that we should know here is that React.js is more of a library than a framework. So because it is a library, it represents the view portion of the MVC. All right. So today we are going to learn something about creating components, and tomorrow also we'll be focusing on components more or less. And the components are basically view portion of the MVC that is there in the front end. All right. So that is something that we'd have to understand. It doesn't provide the whole MVC essentially. It just provides the front end of the or the view portion of the MVC. So model and controller, there are different libraries for implementing different other aspects of the MVC. All right, React is just the view library. All right, so some points on React.js and React Native as well. React Native really becomes very easy once you learn React.js altogether. All right, so and this has a very good tutorial, as I said, so I would like you to go through the tutorial as well. Okay, and we would first like to create our first program in React.js, and then we would like to move forward with components. As of now, like, components are some things that we would like to discuss in today's session more, but before learning components we'd have to just learn more about React. All right, so then we'd go for components and we'll see what are components and all. So first thing is that we would like to also specify here that React.js is used for development in ES6. The languages that we are using is ES6 JavaScript, which is one version of JavaScript, and JSX. All right. Some people call it JavaScript XML. Some people call it JavaScript extensible. I really don't know the full form, but basically this is JavaScript that looks like HTML. All right. And if you know HTML, then you would know JSX. There'll be no learning curve at all, to learn JSX altogether. All right. So JavaScript, ES6, and JSX. Now, while ES6, 98% or 99% of ES6 is already understood by the browser, so there's no problem there. But JSX is not at all understood by the browser. All right, and we have to use these two languages as our programming languages in React. So if these two are not understood by the browser, and the browser understands something called ES5 version of JavaScript, so if that is the case, what do you think should be the process? What do you think should be done if we want to make the browser understand these two languages? Anyone? Any ideas, anyone? If your browser doesn't understand these two, and your browser understands another way of writing JavaScript, that is ES5, what should you do to your code before running it on the browser?
Use some compiler and building.
Sort of compilation can be done. That's correct. So compilation can be done through a library which is called Babel. So Babel is one of the libraries that helps you to compile JavaScript. So Babel is used to compile JSX as well. So ES6 and JSX are compiled via Babel, or Babel you may say. ES6 and JSX to ES5. All right. Now you should know. Okay, Sahil also has something. Running a React server, help translating ES6 to make the browser understand it. Yes. So obviously React server would be run. I mean, you can also do it without running a React server. You'd see in a while, Sahil. So we can also do it without running a React.js server. Anyways, Babel is used to compile ES6 and JSX to ES5. Now, I would like to know from anyone if you know what is ES6 and ES5. Anyone knows what is ES6, what is ES5? Okay, Dhruv says it is the version of JavaScript. Okay, pretty close. JS specification, yes. You may say that JavaScript specification, Devin, but it's not very specific to JavaScript. It is pretty generic. All right. I see that people here understand that, okay, these are different versions of JavaScript, but it is not accurate as a definition. ES6 and ES5 is ECMAScript language specification. And this language specification tells you how to declare variables, how to do loops, or there are so many other features as well available. So these specifications are already there. And front-end development languages like JavaScript, TypeScript, there is something called CoffeeScript as well. All those languages use these specifications. JavaScript happens to be the most popular one, and hence people relate ES6, ES5 to JavaScript, but it's a generic specification that is used in JavaScript, and it's like more like SQL. SQL is a specification which is used in all the database management systems, or RDBMSs essentially. All right. So ES6 and ES5 are specifications. ES6 is really very compact and very predictive, or predictable, you may say, while ES5 is very verbose, very lengthy, and that's why React.js chose ES6 and above version to go for as far as programming is concerned. All right. So that is one thing. So Babel is used to compile ES6 and JSX to ES5 because the browser doesn't understand JSX fully, and like nothing of JSX is understood by the browser, and ES6 doesn't understand fully. Basically, there are some portions which are not understood by the browser. All right, most of the ES6 is though. Okay, so I think now everyone has a pretty good idea on React. So React.js, what we are looking for is 16.13, the latest version. So anything standard one, Sahil, is 16.8, and anything above 16.8 is what we are looking for. But even the versions before that would have almost the same language structure that we have. All right. So there will be very less changes or breaking changes as far as the latest version or the older versions are. All right. So I think everyone gets an idea about React. Please confirm. Very good. And Shubham asks, what is the compilation process? Well, Babel is a library that takes in your source and it compiles it to a browser understandable code. So this ES6 and JSX, they're not fully browser understandable, and hence you use this Babel library to compile these two to ES5 version of JavaScript, which is browser understandable. And yes, there are some changes, Sahil, from from 16.x to the older versions. One of the very important features, which is called React hooks, it's implemented. There is a context API that is full-fledgedly implemented in 16.x versions, or 16.8 plus versions, basically. So we'd cover those topics as well. And also Sahil compared or Sahil asks about, like, is there any difference like AngularJS and Angular 7? Well, no. AngularJS and Angular 7 are like really completely different, while React.js, it's more or less going on one same route. So it is not as big as AngularJS and Angular 7. All right, Sahil? And Shubham, I think, was asking something. Any questions, Shubham? The compilation process, why we need it, right? So because your browser would not understand what you type, all right, ES6 and JSX, your browser would not understand, and your browser only understands ES5, also JavaScript, but a different language specification.
No, I am asking for the why we need the React.js.
Why we need React.js? So basically, we know that front-end development has been very 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 volumetric these days. Like various people work together, various teams work together in front-end development. At that point, managing the code becomes really difficult. Like code conflicts happen. There is no MVC kind of pattern, if there is no MVC pattern followed, then your code would be haywire and you'd not be able to manage it perfectly. So more or less management of the code, and also React.js makes your application quicker. Because of this DOM manipulation that it does internally. There is something called virtual and real DOM, which we'll go for later. So more or less code management and faster websites.
Oh,
All right. As we already have Angular, right? Yes. So Angular is a full-fledged MVC framework, while React.js provides you flexibility on what to choose for model, what to choose for controller. So say for example, we are going for Redux, but then there are so many other Redux like libraries. I have also had clients who actually create their own Redux like libraries, for example, their own routing mechanisms. So it provides you a bit of a flexibility. Angular has all the features available, all the libraries available internally. So you may say that it's not a limitation, but you would be using those features only in Angular. So React allows us a flexibility. So if your project is really, maybe you're going for something like a agile type of a project, and you don't know eventually what your features would be, what you're going to use on the front end, it's better that you go for React.js so that it provides you that flexibility. At times, whenever your server is the one which is in charge of routing, at that point also React.js helps you a great deal, because then you can totally ignore the routing library and just focus on the view portion. So Angular, it might not be so easily possible as it is possible in React. Yes, migration from older version to 16.x might not have much breaking changes, Sahil. That's correct. While again, if you compare it with Angular, that might not be true, because Angular migration, even between, let's say, Angular 4 and Angular 7, it is a process. So, but again, both the frameworks are, both this React.js and Angular, they're really awesome, and they have their own usages, they have their own utilities predefined. All right. So this is what React.js is. And before going into components, I would like to create our first program via React.js CDN that would give you an idea on what is exactly happening as far as React is concerned. So let me just go for a very straightforward approach. I'll just create an index.html, or maybe we'll call it hello world.html. We'll create a simple HTML file. All right. And I'd open it up with my editor. I'd also open it on side of my browser. All right. So basically, this hello world.html would have some specific structure. So let's say, all right. And a div which would have an ID root. Now this div that is the ID root, it is the root of our application. All right. So this approach came in through AngularJS, the older version of Angular, where AngularJS was more or less something that added some functionalities to the existing projects. So there would be a lot of HTML, but then there will be one div that will be your Angular application or AngularJS application. And similarly, here also there will be a lot of HTML in the body, if there is, but then there will be one specific HTML element that would be designated as your React.js application. In this case, we are just having it an ID root. The ID doesn't actually matter. It should be something identifiable. All right, and then we'll have a script. We'll write some script in there, but before going for the scripting itself, we would like to add the dependencies. So obviously this is a React.js program, right? So we would have the dependency which is React. So I can just go for like React.js CDN, and I think I should get some official CDNs. All right, and then you can see that there are two CDN libraries. One is react.development and one is react-dom.development. If it is a production, then react.production, react-dom.production. All right, so first of all, I'll copy them. All right, and you see that there is one core library that is React, and then there is a DOM related library, that is web related library, that is React DOM. Obviously, if it is React Native, then there will be a React Native library apart from React, the core library itself. So whenever you're going for React.js programming, you'd have to have a core library so that the core syntax stays the same, and you'd also have to have a platform specific library. So DOM and React Native are the two other libraries that would be there. So React.development.js, React.dom.development.js, and then we also see that Babel is necessary because we need to recompile. Essentially, we need to compile the whole ES6JSX to ES5. So in that case, I'd also include a CDN for Babel. So I'd go into the browser, and yeah, this is the standalone Babel script that we can include. All right. So we do have three scripts to include here, two related to the React and one is related to Babel altogether. All right. And these are the necessary ones, minimum, that is required to run a React.js application. All right. So this is your basic project structure. Or moreover, can anyone tell me what is the type of the script that we normally use for JavaScript development? Anyone? Type is equal to what? It's the MIME type for JavaScript. Not only JavaScript, but should be a MIME type. Text/JavaScript. Very good, Jignesh. Text/JavaScript. Very good, Mikshit. But here we're not going for JavaScript only. So we are going for JSX, and we do want this script to be compiled through Babel. So what we would do is text/Babel. Now what this would do is, whatever we write inside the script, the Babel compiler would compile it and then execute it. Of course, this is not the way that we'd be doing it in the real world, but this at least works for us while we are trying to learn the ins and outs of React. All right. So the real world approach would be more or less create React app or any other tool chain like Next.js or Gatsby. All right. We'll come to that as well later. So text/Babel, and this is the initial structure of our first program. It'll be very different when we go for the actual create React app version, but I think this, what I have done, is clear to all, right? This initial structure, everyone is clear with? Very good. What about other participants? Very nice. So now we would now not go for the components directly, but first I would just like to create a small demo of creating an element in React and rendering that element. So my first problem statement would be that I want to create an h1 element, and I want to put that h1 inside this div that has an ID root. Now, all the JavaScript programmers would definitely know that we can go for a document.getElement by ID.innerHTML. That sort of thing can be done, but we would like to do it in a React way of things. All right. So my first problem statement is I want to create an h1 element, a heading, write something in it, and I want to put that element inside the div that is the ID root. All right. So I believe that problem statement is something that is clear to all. I would like to go with var. Var is again a variable creation in JavaScript ES5. So var element is equal to h1/h1 hello world. And when you have this React DOM library, it helps you to manipulate the DOM, of course. So we would have a variable called React DOM dot, it has a render method, and the render method has two arguments. One is what do you want to render, and the other is where do you want to render it. So what we want to render is the element, all right, and where do you want to render is the div which has the ID root. So first argument would be element, and the second one would be document dot get element by id root. All right, react dom.render element and document dot get element by id root. So this is the only place where we are actually accessing the document object model directly. Everywhere else you're not advised to do so. All right, we can do so in React, but this is the only place where you'd be doing the access to the document directly and nowhere else. So there is a reason for that, but we'd go through that reason later. But as soon as I do this, and if I refresh, you'd see that a hello world h1 comes up inside the div. If I do an inspect element, you see that div id root has an h1 that is hello world. Right, so this is our first program. All right, so first of all, this syntax, this basic set of syntax should be clear to everyone, right? So please let me know that this is clear. Okay, very good. Now, can anyone point out the problem in this syntax, specifically line number 17? What is the problem here? Yes, Sahil is correct. The element should be enclosed within quotes. And that's how we generally do, right? So single quotation or double quotation, right? And Jignesh also. And Rita says, can't we use dollar into the bracket root? So you are correct, Rita. We can do that, like dollar into the bracket root. But this, it's a jQuery syntax. So you'd also need jQuery to be imported. Anything that gives you the reference to that element, that'll be fine. But this is a jQuery syntax, so jQuery is expected to be here. Otherwise, this would not work. All right. And missing quotes, right? So I added the quotes. Now let's see what happens. You can see that this is now treated as a string and not as HTML. So this element that we created, the thing is, this is not HTML. What this is called is JSX. JSX, as I said, it looks like HTML, but it is JavaScript. This is compiled to one particular statement. Let me just show you what it is essentially. So if I copy this, I go to Babel. Babel has this beautiful try it out section. And in the try it out section, if I paste this, you see that it goes ahead and creates something like this: react.create element h1, and then there are some attributes and then the content of h1. So this is good actually. React.create element happens, and you know, this would also work rather than h1. If I just put it in here, this would work. And if I reload, this would happen. Now this element React, it is available by the React import that we have done over here. Now you'd say that this is actually something that doesn't require Babel anymore. I can go for text/JavaScript, and this would also work. Would work perfectly. However, if I want to do something in here which is a bit hierarchical, like small/small and test written inside of it. Now this creates problem for us. Though this would work, all right, I'll just copy this and paste it in here, make it in different lines for better readability. So h1 hello world is the content, and then we do have another element there. So you can imagine that if you want to create a very well nested structure, this kind of a structure would be really a big headache. It doesn't mean that this would not work. This would still work. All right, there'll be no problem at all. If I do an inspect element, you would still see that h1 and small tags, all of them are created as we are expecting it to. All right, but you can imagine that this is not the way that we would go for. All right, and hence we go for JSX. So basically JSX is a sugar-coated version of React.create element sets, but it is good for the developer because it resembles HTML. So I would go for JSX. But then again, if I go for JSX, let's say welcome, you go for JSX, then here I'd have to go for text/Babel. Otherwise, this would give me an error. So if I go for text/JavaScript, and if I refresh, this will not give me any output, first of all. And also in the console, I can expect an error message, that unexpected token less than. So here JavaScript doesn't understand this type of a syntax. So Babel has to be there. All right. And we get the output. All right. So I think everyone knows what is Babel now. Sorry, what is JSX? Same as HTML. There are a couple of places where I would point you out there are differences between JSX and HTML. But I think everyone knows what is JSX, or where exactly are we using it, right? And also, why are we using Babel? Everyone is clear on that? Very good. Very good. What about other participants? All right. Nice. So now this is a very basic program, but we'd like to also extend this one only, and we'd like to create another better version of this program through Create React App later. But let's first extend this one. First of all, elements are very small building blocks, but the basic building blocks of a React application is always a component, and we'd like to create a component rather than an element. Component is basically a set of elements working together, and your application is essentially a set of components working together. So I would like to know from you that what you understand by a component. Angular people would already know that what is a component in here. So can you tell me like the real dictionary meaning of a component, not the programmatic meaning though? Anyone, any ideas? The real meaning, like dictionary meaning of a component? You can also Google it. I mean, I don't mind. This is not anything technical.
Component is like a join of HTML and JS.
Sort of, but that's again a programmatic definition, right? But that's also partly true, not an issue in there. And Sahil also has an answer: pieces or independent parts which can be reusable. That is actually exactly what it is. Components are logical pieces of code for an Angular application. That's correct, Ankit. They're logical, more or less UI logic would be contained in the components, that is for sure. And Sahil has a generic answer which I'd go with. It is pieces or independent parts which are reusable. Or we can also make it a better definition: the pieces or independent parts of a bigger system which are reusable. All right. And then if we relate it to programming, all the definitions fall into place. Like components are logical pieces of code for Angular applications, and then a combination of HTML and JavaScript, sort of a thing. Independent. All right. So that is definitely the case. All right. And there are two types of components. So now we know like what are components essentially, and we'd also be interested in knowing how to code components. So there are two types of components in React. One is class components, one is functional components. Functional components are simpler ones. We'll start with the functional components, and class components have a bit of a extra syntax, but then it is for good. But nowadays what happens is with the version 16.8 of React, functional components also have the same capability that a class component would have. So I see that in the future we would be using only functional components, but this is a time of transition, and class components are also some things that are used. So we'll be learning both of them. I'll start with a functional component, all right? And we'll see how we create a functional component here. A functional component is created in a very simple fashion. Function, and the name of the function, like say welcome, and that's it. This is your functional component created. Function welcome. The only thing is, should have the first letter capital. All right, just make sure that the first letter of the component is capital. Now that is a generic point. The first letter, be it a class or a functional component. All right, should be capital. And also, if we just specifically talk about functional components should return one and only one element. All right, should return one and only one element. So we do have an element created. I'll just copy it. All right, I'll take it out from the global scope. I'll put it inside the function only, and I'll return the element. All right. So a functional component has an element, returns an element, one and only one element. Now the thing is, like, how do we invoke a component? Instead of the element, we would like to invoke the component, and this is how we do it. Welcome / welcome, like a paired HTML tag, or if we want, we can go for a single HTML tag as well. But then if it is a single tag, then there should be a trailing slash. That is XHTML syntax that we are using. All right. So in order to invoke a component, you use it as an HTML tag. I would like to specify that as well. That is a generic statement again. Class or functional component can be invoked, or invoked by using it as an HTML tag. All right. So once I do this, and if I save it and if I refresh, do you think that any changes would be there in the output? Any changes you think there would be there in the output? Okay, so Jignesh says that it will add a welcome tag in the HTML. All right, we'll do an inspect element, we'll see that. What other, like, any changes on the UI, that the output of the HTML page itself on the browser? Anyone else? All right, let's see. Let's check Jignesh's theory first. If I refresh, first of all, no changes in the output. All right, because it is more or less associative. Welcome is being called and this element is returned and that element is again rendered. But if I also do an inspect element, no changes in the HTML as well. All right, and that is because React.js actually doesn't add specific tags, but these whole components are compiled to HTML. The output is the HTML itself, all right, and not the component tags altogether. This might happen in Angular though. You might see custom tags in Angular, but not in React, all right? So I think, first of all, everyone is clear on the welcome component that we have created here, right? How to create a component, what it returns, and how to invoke it. Everyone is clear on it? Very good. Okay. Very good. So now it is also possible to call a component inside another component, all right, to invoke a component inside the other. So if I, for example, do something like function app, and if I do this, like return welcome, and instead of welcome, over here if I call app component, all right, This is also possible. App is calling the welcome component, welcome is returning an element, and eventually some output will be obtained. So now, keeping this in mind, if I now refresh the page, now do you expect any changes in the output? Yes or no? Very good. Very good. Most of the participants say no. So if I reload, no changes in the output, because we have no new code added. It's just layers of components that are added and no changes in the output at all. All right. So first of all, I would like to just know from you, what would be the hierarchy in here? What do you think would be the parent component and which one would be the child component? If we want to draw a hierarchy, what do you think would be it? App is the parent, welcome is the child. That's correct, Rita. App is the parent, welcome is the child. Let's just draw a hierarchy here. Or maybe we'll draw a hierarchy sometime soon in another project. This is a very simple one. App is the parent and welcome is the child. And this is also one thing which is similar to Angular, that every time when we go for component based front-end development architecture, it is always the composition model of parent-child relationship and not the inheritance model. So you would see that in other programming languages like Java, PHP, or .NET, even any object-oriented programming language, there is always an inheritance way of going for parent-child relationship. But when we talk about front-end development, which is component-based, it is always a composition model. So basically, the parent composes, or parent is composed of child components. All right. For example, in here, app has welcome component. App is composed of welcome component. There could be other components as well inside app. All right. So that is the parent-child relationship that we are establishing here. So one thing that we also came across as far as the discussion that we had about components is that the components are reusable. So if we try and reuse the components like this, and if I reload the page, do you think this should work based on the components definition? Sahil says yes. Ketan says yes. Rita says no, because it returns only one element, and that's correct. Akshay and Mixit and Ankit as well, both the Ankits. I have 6 friends whose name is Ankit. Ankit is a very common name though. And then out of which 3 of them have the same surname, Mehta. So Ankit Mehta is a very common name, because Mehta is a very common surname, Ankit is a very common name. So we have to then call them by their father's names. So that is the thing. Anyways, so here this will not work, never going to work, because a component should return, functional component should return one and only one element. All right. And here we are trying to return 4 elements. So if I reload, this will not give me any output. If I check my console, you see that it gives you an error. Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. All right. Now, what do you mean by that? Can anyone tell me? You should get an idea by the error message, by the way. Some of you might get an idea. What should we do to solve this error?
You can write welcome under the welcome. One tag in another tag.
Okay. Sort of like,
or you can wrap this all for welcome in a single div.
Yes, that is more like it. I would like to go for that. We can go for a single element, div/div, all right, and inside that element we'd have all the welcome components. So here we're following the rules, and we are still returning only one element, but then we are also returning 4 welcome elements inside it. All right, so this seems more likely as an alternative. Okay, div, because it does nothing except for adding one extra div. this is more of a better approach. But then this would also have one problem. Not technically a problem, but you would like to avoid it soon. So it is better that we go for brackets if we go for multiple lines. So I've already added brackets in return. So that, and if I reload, this will still look the same. No worries at all, except for the fact that it adds an extra div inside the div that has the ID root. Now, most of the time, this would cause problems as far as CSS is concerned, all right, because your CSS are targeted to certain elements and certain hierarchies. So most of the time, you'd not need anything extra, right? So in that case, what you should go for is something called a React fragment, which basically is an element, but it's not an HTML element. It's a React fragment, and this would mean that you are returning one element, but at the same time, there is no extra element added in your DOM. All right. So this is React fragment. We'll be using React fragment a lot. All right. So that is something that would happen. Right. So I believe this returning multiple elements by returning one single element, I think this whole return statement that I have, it's clear, right? A few people had a few different suggestions, but I believe everyone agrees to this one. Is that correct? Very good. Nice. What about other participants? All right. So now the whole aim of reusability is to use the same structure but with different data. So now we'll try to pass some data to the components. Now these are HTML tags that we are using eventually, right? So we would pass the data as we pass data in HTML tags like properties. So here I can pass a custom property because we have a custom HTML tag. We can pass a custom property. I'll call it user, and I'll name some user Jignesh, user Jaspreet. Now I'm just naming it based on the latest reply. All right, so don't feel bad if I miss out your name. There are only 4 slots. Nirmal and Dhruv. All right, something like this. And definitely we'd like to show the name of the user inside the component. This will not do anything, by the way, at this point, but we have passed some custom properties in here. Now there is also a question on how to fetch those properties inside the components. So whenever we pass properties in a functional component, you'd get the properties inside the function as an argument. We can name it anything. I'm just deciding to name it props. And the sole reason is that because these are properties, all right? And if I do a console log of props, and if I refresh, you'd see that I get all the properties. The props, as you can see, it's an object. It has a key value pair user, that is the name of the property, and the value. So say if I want to get the user itself, what should I write in the console log? I just want that value and not the whole object. Props.user, very good, Rita. Props.user, that will give you the user. All right. So do you think that if I go for props.user here, do you think that this should give me the expected output? Yes or no? Or if not, or if yes, then fine. If not, then how? Okay. 3 of the participants say yes. But does it seem likely? Would the answer be pretty straightforward? Whenever I ask such a question, it is always the case that will not be the answer. So if I reload, you'd see that you get whatever you write in here. All right. And then some of you might be familiar with the concept of interpolation. If you want to go for displaying the value, I should interpolate it. This is how you interpolate in React. Single curly brackets. In Angular, it is double curly brackets. Yep, the expression syntax as well. That's correct, Jignesh. So if I reload, you can see that now you get all the names displayed. right? And also, I would like to just mention that this interpolation, it's not actually just the variable name display, but it is an expression evaluation, as Jignesh mentioned, Jignesh Patel. So if I go for 1 plus 1, and if I reload, you would get the same string there. But if I put 1 plus 1 in the interpolation syntax, that is curly brackets, then what I'm expecting is the evaluation of 1 plus 1 and the display of the result. So a variable happens to be an expression, and hence it is evaluated and the answer is displayed. All right. So that is there basically. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and it's evaluated here. So we see here that with the interpolation you can have any type of expression, which could be a ternary operator or a binary operation, like an addition or a subtraction, maybe logical operators or relational operators. Anything can be put inside the interpolation syntax as an expression, and you'd get the result evaluated. All right. So I believe this interpolation syntax is also clear, and how we pass data from the parent to child is clear to all. All right. Very good. So this being clear, we would now like to convert the functional component into a class component. The next problem statement is, I would like to convert this one into a class component. Now, we'd only cover the syntactical differences between functional and class components, but later down, we would like to also cover what are the use case wise differences between functional and class. Today we are just covering the syntax. All right, so be sure that you get the syntax correctly. All right, so I would comment this out, and I would create the welcome component as a class component. So first of all, class welcome, the general rule, first letter capital, but then the class component should also extend the React's base component class. All right, React.component. A class component should extend React.component. Now this parent-child inheritance model, it's not the component relationship, but we are extending some features from a base component class. So this is different from the hierarchy that we're talking about. All right. So first of all, let me just note that down for the class component. All right, should extend React.component, and then it should have minimum one method that is render. So a class component should have minimum one method that is render. We'll put that method. All right, and this render method is the one that would be returning the element. All right, like the function did. So render method should return one and only one element. All right, render method should return one and only one element, like we had returned it in the function. So I would return, actually I don't have to create a separate variable for this. I can just go for like h1 slash h1 welcome, and I would also like to display the property in here. So instead of props.user, there is a property that is available in the React component class, which is also called props, and that's where you get the props that are passed in. So instead of props.user, it will be this.props.user. All right. So the user property has already been passed from the app to the welcome component, and because it is a class component, we are referring it as this.props. This props being one of the properties of the parent component, which takes in the properties from the app in here. All right. So I would also write that down. You can see that the class component has too much to learn, but we will learn it eventually. Everything would be a functional component. So props should be accessed as this.props. All right, props should be accessed as this.props. and the calling mechanism remains the same. So you don't have to change anything else. But what I have done is I have changed a functional component to a class component, and it has the render method. So if I reload, nothing changes. The output remains the same, because we don't change how we call or invoke the component. We just change the internals of a component altogether. All right. So this class component syntax should be clear to all. Please confirm. All right. Very good. So this being clear, we would try to do the same thing, but now in more of a real world type of a situation by using something called Create React App. So for using Create React App, we'd have to install Node.js first of all. I already have Node.js inside my computer installed, but I would just like to show you the steps here. I mean, write down the steps. You can try it out later. I think everyone would have Node.js installed on their computers, so you can right away skip this if you want to. So create React app. All right. Create React app. Should install Node.js first. Now, when you install Node.js from its official website, let me just put that website in as well. So you can, by the way, you can go for any of these two, 12.18 or 14. Doesn't actually matter. All we need is the environment, and we're not directly going to use Node.js anyways. But this would open up a few possibilities, like if you want to check, you can check node version, npm version. All right, and that would give you the versions of Node.js and npm. So I have a 12.16 version, and probably this is because one of the projects that I'm working on currently, it is running 12.16, and I've just stayed with that. But you can install any of the versions. That'll be fine. Should be probably above 10 or above, because below 10, I think React.js, the Create React app would not work. All right, so just make sure that it's 10 or above, or the latest version would also do. Right, so after installing Node.js, you can check them, both Node and NPM. NPM, it's a Node package manager. So if you are a PHP programmer, it is similar to Composer. If you are a Java programmer, it is similar to Maven. .NET programmer, NuGet package manager, and so on. There's also another package manager which is called Yarn. I'll be using Yarn, by the way, but most of you would have NPM already available once you install Node. Right, so first we should install Node.js, and we should check both Node and NPM versions. How to update Node from an older version to latest? So Sahil, you can simply download the latest version and install it. It'll automatically update it. But if you want to keep both the older version and the latest version, there is a utility called NVM, that is Node Version Manager or something. So NVM can be used to play with different Node.js versions on the same computer. All right, so that is also useful when you do some work on multiple projects. All right, so installing Node.js, and then we go for Create React App. So npx create React app, and then the application name. For me, it will be Hello World. All right, I'll just name it Hello World CRA. That is Create React App. All right, so npx create React App Hello World CRA. Let me just do this. Let me copy the command and paste it in my terminal. I have skipped a couple of steps of installing Create React App globally and all, but now with this npx utility available, we don't have to essentially install Create React App globally. So that would still be fine. Without installing globally, you can just utilize this particular Create React App. It's a really cool thing. So while this installs, I'll just recap on what we have done thus far and what we are going to do. So what we have done so far is we saw what React.js is, what exactly it consists of, and what exactly it represents in the MVC. We also saw that React Native is used for native application development. Babel is a very important aspect as far as React.js is concerned. All right. And then we saw what are components and what are some rules about components that we should go for. There are some ES6 features that we would like to cover today. Maybe some of them might be covered tomorrow, but that's fine. Some of them we'll start by today. And then we saw one way of creating a React application. So Shubham asks, other than CLI, how can we create a React app? Other than CLI, you can actually manually set it up by setting up a Node.js project. The Node.js environment is essential. Other than that, you can manually set up the React.js app by setting up a Node.js project, installing React as a dependency, and so on. But that is all done by Create React App altogether. And then there are other tool chains like Create React App, like there is Next.js, there is Gatsby. They allow you to have a definite project structure right away. All right. So basically, you should know Node.js, or I mean, at least some of it, so that you can create the React.js application. Right now, it's okay if you don't know Node.js, totally fine. But eventually, you are expected to know some of it. All right, Shubham? I think that answers your question. Very good. So this is what we saw up till now. And now we'd just like to create the same application that we created, Hello World, but by using the Create React App utility. It will take some time for us to get the whole thing installed. And for me, the version manager, the NPM equivalent is Yarn. Again, I'm using Yarn for one of my projects, and hence I would go with Yarn only, but I would note down both the commands, Yarn or NPM, whichever you're using, you can use essentially. All right. So let's wait for a while for this to get created. Right. So you can see already that it tells me at the end that we should CD into Hello World CRA application and just go for Yarn start. If you have not installed Yarn, you would have NPM start as a suggestion. But if you have Yarn in your computer, Create React App would take Yarn as the default dependency manager. All right. So CD into Hello World React or Hello World CRA and Yarn start. And while this starts, I'd also like to open up the structure. We'll try to understand the project structure a bit. It would automatically open up a browser for me, by the way. As you can see that it automatically opened it up. And let me just open up the whole application in my editor. So with this, npx utility becomes really easy. You can just install Node.js and just go for npx create react app and the name of the app. Really easy. We'll be doing the same thing in another project tomorrow. This will give a good revision as well. But I believe everyone gets the process of creating a React application through the Create React App utility, right, everyone? All right. Very good. So now you can see that the React application is running on localhost 3000. Node.js and Create React App together have set up a very nice environment for us. It tells us that you can edit the src/app.js and save it to reload. I'll do that. I'll go to the app.js. You can see that it is a functional component. It returns one element, that is div. I'll just get rid of the header altogether and maybe just say app works, something like this. And you don't have to, you just have to save it, all right? And once you save it, the application would automatically reload. That's a very good thing. A hard reload, it's basically, what do we call it? Hot reloading. All right. Hot reloading is something that is possible. and we don't need the logo, so I just got rid of the logo. But you can see there are certain things that are familiar here. This is a functional component. It is returning an element. The only thing that is not familiar, it's import and export. In order to create any functional component, we should import React, and React is necessary for interpreting the JSX elements and all. And we are exporting the app, so which means this app would be imported somewhere. So you would see that this import export way of doing things would always be there in all the components that we create. And when we create a CRA application, it would be more or less separation of concerns, so that each component is in a separate file and would be exported. So this app.js is exported, and if you check out the main file, that is index.js, app is imported over here. All right, import app from app. There's no extension because it is a Node.js ecosystem. You don't have to basically specify a JavaScript that is a JS extension. So that, and then there is a React DOM.render. Strict mode is not important right now. I'll just get rid of it because we want to make it as simple as possible for us to start with. And it is just the app component. We don't need service worker. Service worker is more or less related to progressive web apps, so we don't need service worker at this point. And I can get rid of service worker altogether. So I'm just trying to make it as simple as possible. Again, we are importing React. There is a React DOM imported. We're importing the app component. There is a CSS imported. All right, and React DOM.render happens. App is your first component. That is what you want to render, and document.getElementById root is where you want to render it. Right. So this is your main file. This is where your React.js project starts from, and it calls in the app component. And app component is your root component. That is the main component. It'll be calling in other components like welcome or any other components altogether. All right. So it is more or less index.js and app.js that we are working on. The CSS files are for styling. You have one app.css included in app.js. If you want, you can delete it. It'll just take off the styling, and one index.css which is included inside the index.js. Right. Again, styling can be taken off if you don't want it to. There's a logo, there's a service worker, and there are some test related files, which we would go for later, not now, but there are .test.js for unit testing and so on. So we would be majoritarily working in the SRC folder. All right. So I think everyone gets the whole structure and the execution flow of Create React app application. Yes, everyone? Now there is a good question from Rita. What Rita asks is, we do have a document.getElementById root, but then where is that div with an ID root? So if you go into your public folder, you'd see that there is an index.html, has so much of a code in it, but there is one div that has an ID root in here. And there's no scripts, there's no JavaScript file altogether, but this index.html would be serving as your main template, and your JavaScript would be compiled through Babel. And there's also one other tool which is used for bundling, which is called Webpack. All right, the official website of Webpack is this. I think it's webpack.js.org. Yeah, webpack.js.org. It is essentially used for bundling the assets, and your bundle would be created, and the index.html would be injected with those scripts. So at the end, with something called a Webpack dev server, let me show you the React application. View page source. You see that there is a div ID root, and these scripts are the result of Babel and Webpack working together. Webpack simply injects those scripts into the index.html. Babel is the one that compiles, and Webpack bundles and injects them. So this index.html is the one that has the div which has an ID root. That is what we are referring to inside document.getElementById root. All right. So I believe, Rita, that answers your question. All right. So now the next step is to create our welcome component. And as I said, more or less we'll be working in the SRC folder only. So let me create my welcome file. And as a rule, I maintain it that because the components are essentially JSX files, and for my editor to give me better suggestions, I go for all the components to be JSX. We can have the component name to be having an extension .js. All right, welcome.js. It's totally valid, but because I want a visual representation, a visual difference of this being a component, I'll just name all the components with a JSX extension, and all the normal files would be JavaScript extension, all right, JS. But doesn't make any difference as far as execution is concerned. So if I want to create a class component, first of all, I import React from React, all right, and class welcome extends react.component. There is a better way of going for the react.component, all right, which we will come across later, related to something called destructuring syntax in ES6. This is there. Welcome has minimum one method. What is that one method that is there inside a class component? Render, very good. Render returns your element. So return, let's say h1, welcome, and what I would be expecting is this dot props dot user. All right, and at the end I'd export default welcome. Now there is an export default, and then there is something also called normal export, all right, which we will go into when we go for ES6 syntax. But as of now, we'll just assume that okay, there is only one type of an export, that is export default. We'll go for the other export later. All right, so here we have created a component, a class component, and it's the same thing that we created in our JavaScript file, and we are exporting it. So you can see that export would always be done. This is a separation of concerns. Every component has its own file, so always there'll be an export that will be done. All right, so now we go to the app.js. I would import the welcome component. Ooh. Welcome. And with JSX as well, if you don't mention the extension, that'll be fine. But as I said, I need some visual difference going. So all my components would be specifically mentioned as a JSX extension. And here I can go for welcome. And let's say Ankit. Did I go for user? Yeah, this .props.user, right? So user Ankit, and let's have some more users. Devin, Rita, Sahil, and Ankit. Okay, Kishan. All right, so if I save it, you can see that you already get the output that we had. All right, so this should be now very straightforward. As you know, the basics, when we went for the CDN, we went for something similar, but in one single file only. But it's always not a good practice to have everything in one single file. So it'd go for more organization, different files for different components. So I think this create React app demo is the same demo as the CDN one. But I think this is clear to all. Please confirm. Very good. What about other participants? Nice. So now here we are just stopping this topic, but then because there are certain language syntaxes, language features that we would like to cover, we'd go for ES6 features. So let me just close this down. Let me close this one as well. We'd go for ES6 features, all right? And let me also stop this one. You can see that there is a message called compiled successfully. That is obviously Babel compiling ES6 and JSX to ES5. All right. So now ES6 features, variables, fat arrow functions. I'd like to create a folder here. And let me just open this up in my editor. And we'll also have, let me just maximize it. We'll also have a terminal opened. All right, because I'll be executing JavaScript through terminal. All right, let me create the first file, variables.js. If I, for example, create a variable a is equal to 10, console.log a should give me 10, right? And this is a JavaScript file. I already have Node.js installed on my server, or sorry, on my machine, and hence I can simply do this node variables.js. Node.js, it's a JavaScript runtime, which means it allows you to run JavaScript on the console and maybe interact with the hardware of the computer as well, network as well. So you can have more possibilities with JavaScript in here. So I can execute it this way. First of all, I'd just like to make a confirmation, or I'd like to have a confirmation from all that everyone is clear on this way of executing JavaScript, right? All right. So now let's understand the variable syntax in ES6. So there are two syntaxes that are added in ES6. One is let and one is const. Const, the name itself suggests that it is used to declare constants. We'll be making use of constant more than let keyword, by the way. Let is used to create a variable. So in order to see what is the difference, if I do something like if true, all right, if true meaning this block would always be executed, and I go for var a is equal to 20. And outside this if block, if I do a console log of a, what do you think should be the output in here? Okay. Right. Majority, like all of them are correct actually, 20. And though this should not be how a variable should be behaving, variable should respect the scope and lifetime rules. JavaScript var keyword has the var global, it is not block scoped. So even if you declare a variable with a var keyword in a block, it will not be a block scoped variable. It will be global variable, and hence we are getting 20 in here. But let follows the rules. So if I go for let, which is an ES6 syntax, right, and if I run this, you get that block scoping working. All right, so whatever you declare inside the block remains inside the block. Outside of the block, it's not scoped at all, and the global variable that is there gets the priority. Outside, inside is the local variable that gets the priority. All right, so that is the difference between let and var. And then of course there is a const keyword. If I go for const, say pi is equal to 3.14, right? If this is the case, if I do a console.log of pi, if this is the case, then this would work, and this would also obey the scope and all those things. The only problem is if I try and go for, or maybe it's not a problem, it's a good thing, if I try and go for 22/7, for example, if I try to modify the constant, it would throw me an error, right? Assignment to a constant. Yep, that's correct, Palak. So this is what it is. This is the difference between let, var, and const. There was no const available in ES5, all right, only a variable. But with ES6 in, const is also a keyword that is available. So I believe everyone gets the difference between let, const, and var, and we'll be using either let or const. We'll never be using var as such. All right. So everyone gets this. Very good. Very good. So this being done, we would now like to also see the fat arrow function syntax. So Java programmers would be familiar to a syntax called lambda functions. Angular programmers would already know this one. So say if we go for, now in JavaScript, there is a possibility that you can create anonymous functions and you can assign it to variables. I would like to have it assigned to a const. All right, say hello, for example, user, and return hello user, something like this. And this variable or this constant can be then used as a function, or maybe we can also make this one a bit clean. Instead of single quotations, I would do a backtick template literal, This is also an ES6 feature. And instead of just the user, I would interpolate the user. So it'll be brackets and dollar. This is the interpolation syntax of ES6, a bit similar to React's interpolation, but better one. I mean, internally it does something very similar to React's interpolation. All right, so we can just display it, let's say console log, say hello Ravi, for example. And if I run this, you can see that you get the output. Now, this is not the fat arrow function, all right, but this is a normal function, and this normal function always has the context. So console log, if I go for this, and you might be familiar with the this keyword, it's always used for object-oriented programming. But the problem with JavaScript was in ES5, there was no way to create a class with a class keyword. So people used functions to create classes, and JavaScript provide the context that is this inside a function. So if I run this, you see that it'll be heavily loaded with some context already. So you can see that this is the this that we are getting. It's basically the global context that is there, and you can add on data to it, which is also not a good thing. But fat arrow function solves this for us. So fat arrow function is something like this. All right, get rid of the function keyword and have an arrow that is equal to and greater than sign, and then the body of the function. What this would do is it would not carry any context. That is exactly how a function should behave. And you can see that it's a blank object that we are getting in place of this. So there's no context at all. Also, let me just delete this. If you have only one statement and that is the return statement, then it is better that we ignore the return, we ignore the body parentheses, and we ignore the closing parentheses as well. And our function becomes really compact. So essentially predictability and compactness is what ES6 is focusing on. And if I rerun this, it'll be one and the same as the output. All right. The equivalent to this is, of course, if we talk about ES5, it'll be var say hello function user return hello user, and this, right? Lengthy syntax. This one is more compact. All right, so I'll just comment it out. But I believe everyone gets this fat arrow function syntax and also the difference between what a normal function is and what a fat arrow function would be. Yes? Very good. What about other participants? All right. So this being done, we would now like to, we also saw template literals. However, we might or might not be using template literals in our React.js project. Doesn't actually, I cannot actually tell it right now, but there is a template literal syntax that is there in ES6 that we have used. And we'd also see something about classes. So again, as I said, ES5 didn't have the class keyword at all. ES6 does have the class keyword. Let's say we'll call it a class demo.js. And we'll go for something like class student, and we'd go for an ID, name, email, sem, right? 4 properties. Now, whenever you create a class and you declare properties of the class, there is no declarative syntax. That is, there is no let or const or var that you'd have to use. Even for functions, say for example, show details, you don't have to use the function keyword or a fat arrow syntax. You can use a fat arrow syntax, which we viewed in React, all right? But there's no declarative syntax essentially. So that is there. And I can simply do a console log this.id, this.name, this.email, this.sem, something like this. And we can also put in a constructor. Now, in a class in JavaScript, constructor is called a constructor. In some of the other programming languages, constructor is the same as the class name. That's fine. In JavaScript, it is called constructor. Constructor can expect certain arguments like ID, I for ID, N for name, email, SEM, or something like that. And then I can construct the whole object like this dot ID is equal to I, this dot name is equal to N, this dot email is equal to E, this dot SEM is equal to S. All right, something like this can be done. And yeah, so this is actually it. And then we go for creation of the object, like const student. By the way, I created a class student with S capital, and it's not necessary, but as a habit, I always like to create classes with the first letter capital, but not necessary in this case. All right, so just keep that in mind. Is equal to new student, one, name, email, and SEM, right? Something like this. And we can simply go for student dot show details, and that would simply show the details to us, like node class demo, and there we have the details. All right, so a very simple way of creating class, just that there should be no declarative syntax in creating a class, and the constructor is named constructor itself. All right, I believe everyone is clear on this class that we have created. Very good. All right, so now it comes the turn of import and export syntax. So import and export syntax, it's also, as such, it's really simple. All right, there are certain variations of import and export that we would come across throughout the whole sessions, and some we would cover right now, some we would be covering later. There are certain variations. Otherwise, it is really simple. We have seen one type of import and export that we saw while creating components. Palak has a question. How do we go for if we have a complex data structure? So basically, nesting of classes is nesting of objects is what you're talking about, right, Palak? Like an object inside an object kind of a thing. Yeah, so basically this name could be something like, or maybe we can try for address. All right, and address can be like this dot address is equal to A, for example. All right, and that can be passed as the last argument. And then I can have a class address created, and that address class may be having something like building, street, zip code, right? Something like this. And a constructor to construct the object, building, street, and zip code. So this dot building is equal to B, this dot street is equal to S, this dot zip code is equal to Z, for example. All right, and maybe it can also have a show address kind of thing, or we don't need to actually have a show syntax in here. What we can do is the last argument address could be like a new address, let's say 22 Baker Street, and some zip code. All right, and I think that should be it. Like I can show the address in here, this dot address, and if I run the program, you can see that you get the address object as well. So that's like pretty straightforward. It's just that you can have multiple classes if you want to. All right, Palak, I think that answers your question. And Rita also asked another question. With class, don't we have to specify any data type? Now, in JavaScript itself, JavaScript, because it's a loosely typed language, we don't have to specify any data type. But then there is another scripting language which is called TypeScript, used by Angular. And people nowadays also use TypeScript in React. With that, we can specify data types. With JavaScript, it is a dynamically typed language. So whatever your initial value is, you'd get it as the data type of that particular variable, like PHP, you know. All right. So this being clear, we'd now like to go for the import and export. One thing is for sure that we can go for a couple of classes here, student and address, or maybe, yeah, two classes, class.student.js. The naming convention actually doesn't matter. It is something that I'm choosing it to name. And I can put this in here and go for export default student. All right. And then I'd also have a address class. And the address would be basically export default address, right? And we can import them here. So import student from class.student, import address from class.address, something like this, and we can run this. Now this, with import and export, it really becomes really clean and really understandable. Every concern is separate in its own class and everything works. The only problem here is import and export, they're not understood by Node.js. So if I run the class demo now, you see that will give me an error. Import doesn't actually fit into Node.js. And if we want to make it understand import, then we'd have to set up Babel for it so that Babel can compile it, and that can work. But and also Webpack as well. But here it is not understood. So we would be using the Node.js module system syntax instead. We would not be using that other syntax that I'm going to use over here in React, because React already understands import and export. So there's no problem there. So what I would do instead is I'd go for const student is equal to require class.student. This is just so that I can run the program over here, all right? Const address is equal to require class.address. And of course the export would also be different. Instead of export default, it'll be module.exports student. And this is a syntax from Node.js module system that Node.js understands. These are equivalent syntaxes. All right. Once I do these exports, and once I have this import available, you should be able to go for running this, and this would execute. Yep, you can see that this executes. We can use let instead of const. But we would form a habit of using const wherever we want or wherever we can, and use let only when it is absolutely necessary to change the variable. So in this case, using const for the names of the class perfectly makes sense because we don't want the classes to change. But then using const here means that I know that the student is not changed at all in here, and hence we'd be using const altogether. So this would enable you to create more predictable code, and that's a very important thing as far as React is concerned, predictability. And hence we would practice in a way where we use const wherever we can. If we want to change the variable, then and only then we use let. All right. Does that sound okay, Rita? Otherwise, we can use let everywhere and this will still work. All right. There'll be no problem that way, but we'd like to form a habit of using const, which is very important for React. All right, so this being done, now we would be going through certain variations in import statements, and these variations we would like to, you know, we would like to essentially uh, check the syntaxes than executing it, because Node would never be able to execute it. But we'd like to check these syntaxes so that we can use these syntaxes in React programming. All right. So in this case, what we would do is we'll just revert back to what it was earlier. I'll just delete this or maybe comment this. All right. Same for the class address. Now, this is one way of exporting things. There is also another way of doing it. All right. Say, for example, if we don't want to do an export default for student, for example, I can simply do export class student. And the way we import this exported member is by using curly brackets. So this would go import student from class.student. All right, import student from class.student. So this normal export can be imported through curly brackets. This is a destructuring syntax. We'll go through that in a while. But this is the another variation of export and import. The only difference, obviously syntaxes are different for importing the export, but the other difference is that if there is a normal export, there can be multiple exports which are normal exports, but then there could be only one default export. All right. So, you know, what we can do is take this address, put it into the student. What would make more sense is exporting the student by default and exporting the address normally. This it's a sub member supporting library kind of a thing. All right. So I have a class student. I'm exporting it by default, and there could be only one export. And I have a class address. I'm doing a normal export to this. So this class.student is exporting two things. One is export default student. One is normal export address. And in the class demo, I can get it this way. Import student, comma, address from class student, like so. All right. So address, it's a normal export, student is a default export. And it is not necessary for us to have a default export at all. But since student is the main class, I'm just exporting it by default. Export and the normal export, they're imported in two different ways in this particular case. All right. I believe the import and export syntax that I showed you over here, it's clear. Very good. Very good. So this would be some things that we'd be using. I would not be able to execute it anyways, but we'd be using this kind of a syntax in React. Now, coming back to another feature, which is called the spread operator. Spread operator is really a cool feature in ES6 essentially. We'll be heavily using spread operator as well. All right. So the spread operator here, we can go through it through a problem statement. So if I, for example, have, let's say, user details, or maybe personal details is equal to an object which is name, email, and age. All right. And then we have another object, let's say login details is equal to username and password. All right. And then if I want to merge these two objects and create a third object, with one level of hierarchy only, I can do something like this. Now, there could be so many other solutions. There could be looping you can do and so many other things as well. But if I want to just merge them right away, we can do something like personal details, login details. This would give me one single level hierarchy object that is user details. There's no nesting of objects in here. So if I do a console.log user details, you'd get all the properties in one object. And that is all because of spread operator. The spread operator essentially spreads through the target and takes in all the properties, dumps it into this particular object. All right. So if I run this, you'd see that I get one single object altogether. All right. And this is an object that we are creating, but it is also the same for array as well. So I'll demonstrate an array as well. But before that, I just want to know from you that you're clear on this spread operator syntax that I've used. All right. Say for example, in the login details, if I have email to be test@gmail.com, if this is the case, and if I run this, what do you think would the email be in the result? Because now there are two email fields. Sahil says two emails. Rita says both would appear. Palak says it will be test@gmail.com, the second one. So let's see. You see that the email is overwritten, and that also tells you that this kind of an operation, it's basically a merge operation. So if there are two common keys, the last one would be the one that would be there inside the resultant object. All right, so it's a merge operation that is taking place. I believe everyone is clear with that. Please confirm. All right. Good. So this being done, we would now like to we'd now like to go for the array spread. The syntax is quite same actually. If I want to go for an array spread operator, I can go for marks1 to be, this is one array, square brackets is an array, by the way. Something like this. And if I want to merge these two, it'll be an array, and I'll be going for marks1 ... marks2. This would give me a single dimensional array. If I remove the spread operator itself, it'll give me a multi-dimensional array. All right. So as of now, I can just go for console log marks3. All right, and that will be fine. That'll be it. And if I go for node spread, did I do a console log? Let me just get rid of the console log as well. You can see that you get a single dimensional array. It's just the display that is in two lines. Otherwise, it's just one single dimension. All right. So that is the case. So just keep in mind that spread operator helps you to spread through an array or an object. Because this is an array and array have different indexes, there's no override kind of a thing. So it's a normal merge operation for the array as well. It's not like an object where the same keys would be overridden. Otherwise, there'll be no meaning for this particular spread that we're doing. All right. So object spread and array spread, same syntax, different data types behave differently. All right. So the last syntax for today, destructuring. All right. So destructuring, it is more or less what we saw while the normal export. So let me show you what it is. So if I have an object like const student is equal to name, email, age, sem, all right, something like this. And if I want to get individual properties into individual variables, I would simply do this, like const name is equal to student dot name, const email is equal to student dot email, const age is equal to student dot age, and const sem is equal to student dot sem, right? Something like this. And I can simply go ahead and print down email, age, sem. All right, and I can run this one and you get the result. All right, so all the properties have their own variables. Now these 4 lines can be made more compact by this kind of a syntax. Const extracting from the student name, email, age, sem. Now what it does is it takes in each and every property with this name, all right, and puts it into its own constant. So essentially it does these 4 lines into one. Pretty clean syntax, pretty useful, and we'll be using the destructuring syntax a lot. All right, so this is the object destructuring. Similarly, we can also go with array destructuring. All right, so say for example const marks is equal to 10, 20, 30, and if I do something like const a comma b is equal to marks, if I go for console.log a comma b, what do you think would be the output of a comma b in here? Ten 20, right, would be 1020. And that also tells you that while you are destructuring, whether it be an array or an object, it is not at all necessary to get all the properties in. Whatever you require, you can get it, else you can just ignore. So in this case, a comma b, it ignores 30, but we get the first ones, that is 10 and 20. Rita asks, should be the same name as the object property. So yes, when it is an object destructuring, it has to be the same name, and hence sequence would not matter. While as far as array destructuring is concerned, we'd have to follow a sequence. So that's the only difference between the destructuring of object and array. All right. So I believe everyone understands the destructuring syntax as well. All right, very good. So here we have it. We saw how to create application in React. The create React app way of doing it would be the one that we would be following majoritarily. But in order to learn the basics, we also created a React application through CDN. We saw some ES6 features that we'd be using. Promises and generator functions are pending. We would go for them in later sessions. More importantly, we saw how to create a component, and then there are 2 types of components. We saw the syntax differences in the components altogether. All right, the use case difference is something that is yet to be done. So I believe everyone is clear on what we did today. And if you have any questions, you can put it forward. And if not, then just put in 0 so that I can conclude the session. All right. Very good. So we would be going for a project that we'll be starting tomorrow, and that same project will be taken forward and concluded at the end of all the sessions. So we'll be keeping on adding certain features in that same project. It'll be a very small project, but it'll cover all the CRUD functionalities and everything. It'll help you to learn React more. I would be sharing the video, that is the YouTube link of this video, and the content and the notepad and all to Silky. So you would be getting that in the drive. Silky would be providing it to you. All right, so this is it for today, guys, and hope you had a great session, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you for having me with you. And we'll meet you tomorrow. Up till then, have a nice day. Bye-bye.